So the Trump administration is continuing to crack down on immigration in a very over-the-top and unacceptable way. Children born overseas to some American parents serving in the military or working for the federal government may no longer automatically claim U.S. citizenship if their parents had lived in the United States for less than 5 years, according to a new federal policy issued Wednesday. Instead, officials said those parents must apply for citizenship on behalf of their children before they turn 18 years old. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, which processes citizenship applications, said it rescinded a policy that allowed some members of the military and government employees to easily transmit citizenship to children born overseas because it conflicted with other policies in federal law. The policy takes effect on October 29th and applies only to children born afterward, officials said. So really reflect on how loathsome this is, because this is really low. This is bad. They're saying if your parents are serving in the military and they're overseas and you happen to be born in that circumstance, you're not automatically a U.S. citizen. So your parents are in the military, nominally fighting for the United States or participating in helping those who are fighting for the United States. And that's not American enough to Donald Trump and to his administration. It's not American enough that your parents are putting their lives on the line for the country. That's not American enough. And it's the nuanced trolling here. Well, if they had lived in the United States for less than 5 years, even if they're serving in the military for this country, it's still not, your kids are not going to get automatic citizenship. Now, this is bad enough, but we've also covered stories in the past where, and I don't think this happened just under Trump, it also happened under Obama. There were deportations of U.S. veterans. Let me repeat that. Deportations of U.S. veterans. Why? Well, in most instances, it was because there was a violent crime committed, but there were some instances, plenty of instances, one particularly coming to my mind now under the Trump administration, where it was a low-level nonviolent drug offense, and they deported somebody. A U.S. veteran, low-level nonviolent drug offense, was deported after fighting for this country. I mean, come on, man. That defies all logic. That defies all reason. And, you know, you would think the right, don't you want to incentivize people to be in our military? But what you're saying to them is, if you're a U.S. citizen, but it's less than 5 years, and you're overseas serving this country and you have a kid, that kid is not American. Well, then it's going to disincentivize people from joining the military. Maybe I should be cheerleading it for that reason, because I don't want people going to die fighting overseas. I think that is terrible. I think we should end all the wars. But as a matter of principle, look at how gross that is. And you see stories like this nonstop. You've seen a massive uptick in the deportation of people who are undocumented, but they're not criminals. And that, I find that totally unacceptable and a gigantic waste of resources. And it's just a slap in the face to basic human rights and basic moral values. I mean, that's really not too much to ask. If you ask me and you tell me, hey, Kyle, I got this person who's a violent offender and they're also an undocumented immigrant, can we deport them? I say, sure, no problem. But if you're telling me I got this person here who's of no harm to anybody, has been a productive member of society and been here for a while, but they're undocumented, so we're going to ship them out. I mean, think about the ideological commitment you have to that position to ruin people's lives in the process. Think about how deep down that rabbit hole you've gone to the point where you say, even if you're serving this country, your kid is not American enough because you weren't here for 5 years. Even though you're serving this country. It's almost like certain kinds of people, they can never earn their stripes in the minds of Trump and his merry band of vicious idiots and his far-right supporters. It's almost like there's something else that's motivating their ideology here. And listen, in more honest moments, they'll tell you. They'll just say it. You know, we don't want any people coming here from shithole countries. Interesting. Because he thinks all the black and brown countries are shithole countries. It's almost like he just wants white immigrants. It's almost like he just wants white citizens. It's almost like he's trying to foster that through policies as much as possible. I mean, that's what they see, man. That's what they see. To them, to somebody who's on the left, who's actually on the left, the way they view skin color is just, it's totally arbitrary. It's like the way you view eye color. You're not going to judge somebody who has blue eyes versus brown eyes, whatever it is. You're just not going to judge them on the basis of that. You judge them on the content of their character. But let's be honest, to a lot of these people on the far right, sometimes it's not like a conscious belief. It's like a subconscious belief. But they do. They judge people based on their background, based on their skin color. And that's why a lot of these policies are geared in that direction. Geared towards limiting the people coming from shithole countries. You know, and maybe increasing from white countries. And again, they'll deny it at the top of their lungs that, you know, their ideology is motivated at all by race. But we've seen the evidence over the years, and it's overwhelming. You know, we've seen all the fear-mongering about undocumented immigrant crime. They bring diseases. There's a dark history attached with that fear-mongering about, they bring diseases. They used to use DDT, that toxic chemical, to, you know, treat people who would come through the southern border to work here in the U.S. and then go back. They used to spray DDT on them because the argument was, these are dirty immigrants and they all have lice. Now, they didn't, but it didn't matter. There was a process by which you'd stand in like a gas chamber-like thing and they'd spray DDT on your face and on your clothes. A lot of people got sick as a result of that. But that was the policy because the default assumption was illegal immigrant, brown skin, dirty. The other one is illegal immigrant, criminal. Now, I've shown you the statistics on this show. It's actually not true because, you're more likely to be a criminal if you're a native-born American citizen than you are if you're an undocumented immigrant and a documented immigrant. All categorizations of immigrants are statistically much less likely to be criminals, but that's not the narrative you hear, is it? The narrative you hear nonstop is that they're criminals. Trump's, Mexico's not sending their best. There's criminals, they're rapists. I assume some are good people. Again, statistically, the overwhelming majority of them are not criminals, and native-born American citizens are much more likely to be criminals. But that's not the narrative you hear. And then they'll do cheap, vicious propaganda of taking one instance of an undocumented immigrant who is a criminal, and they'll hammer that away like the angel moms that Trump loves to put out there. And that's to create a narrative, guys. And that narrative is they want you to believe that they're all criminals, they're all dirty, they're all criminals, and we got to do something about it. They're ruining the country. And there's the old divide and conquer as well. You try to get middle-class white people to blame poor black and brown people for all their problems. That's what you do. Blame them. No. Don't look at the tax bill we just passed, which is going to raise taxes on everybody making $75,000 a year or less over a 10-year period. Don't look at that. Don't look at that. Don't look at that. Don't look at that. Don't look at the, gutting of the estate tax and cutting the capital gains rate, and don't look at the massive deregulation of Wall Street, which they're going to, again, crash the economy and run out the back door with all the money. Don't look at that. Don't look at our violent militaristic policies in Iran and Venezuela. Don't look at all the countries we're bombing and the massive amounts of money we're wasting on the military. Don't look at the 93,000 jobs that have been outsourced, even though I pretended like I was an anti-outsourcing president. Don't look at the fact that I'm fighting to keep the minimum wage low and I'm against the minimum wage increase. Don't look at that. Don't look at any of that. You know who's responsible for all your problems? It's the fucking black and brown people, man. Don't worry, though. We're going to take care of it. We just introduced a new policy. That policy is going to say, even immigrants who are serving this country, fighting overseas, not American enough. Not American enough. They have kids. They're not necessarily American. They're not American. Get in line, bro. Get in line. Oh, you're serving the country? You think that makes you American enough? Says who? No. Don't worry, middle-class white person. We're here to protect you. Even though they'll deny it till the cows come home, there definitely is a racial aspect to this. And it's vicious, and it's dumb, and it's wrong, and it's bad. And unfortunately, it's not like the Democratic Party proposes a very strong, robust resistance to this, because they called Obama the deporter-in-chief, and he broke the record on deportations. And there are very few politicians who really have a humane approach to immigration. Now, again, I already explained to you guys, I'm fine with deporting undocumented immigrants who are also violent criminals. Totally fine with that. But outside of that, we should have a humanitarian policy when it comes to the border, when it comes to immigration. We should have a very reasonable process that treats people with humanity and dignity, and that's not too much to ask for. But we are so far away from that policy at this moment, between whether it's the kids in cages, whether it's what we're looking at here with the move to say, even if you're a service member, you're not American enough. It's beyond screwed up. And it's going to take a long time to undo all the damage that's currently being done.